I'm glad to get to be with all of you this afternoon. I'm Amy Ritchie. I'm looking out. I think I know you all here. So it's good to see all of your friendly faces on such a beautiful day. We are going to begin with, well, first I need to tell you that I sound sick and I have a stuffy nose and I might cough, but I'm like a week and a half from the beginning. And so a nurse practitioner said, "You're not infectious." So just so you know, I wouldn't be here otherwise. We will begin with a call to worship. I will say a line, and when I indicate to you, you will say a phrase often found in Celtic liturgy, and that is Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, three. So let's try that together. Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, three. You are the love of each living creature, O God. Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, three. You are the warmth of the rising sun. Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, three. You are the whiteness of the moon at night. Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, three. You are the life of the growing earth. Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, three. You are the strength of the waves of the sea. Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, three. I call this little talk Celtic Coastlines from a landlocked Hoosier. There are many gifts that my mother has given me, and one of which was being taken to the Rotary Club presentations of group travel experiences. They called them triptychs, which I thought that was such a great word. I didn't know what it meant. And so as a little girl, I would look up on the multiple tall screens on the stage, sometimes 4, sometimes 3, hanging like banners. It was in the Wawasee High School auditorium. And the images would come and go as the narrator talked. And sometimes they carried one big image together. I was enraptured by the sights and the talks of food or scents, landscapes that didn't look like anything that I had known before. I loved it. This taught me to love the vacation photos of almost everyone. I'll look at your trip to Obergammerauer, and I will love looking at it with you. Even though I've never been there before, I can place myself there. I can imagine it for myself with you. That was gift enough. But what I was not aware of at the time, only later, is the gift of being able to be immersed through imagination in a culture or a language or images of places that do not belong to me from my own travels. I learned to hear a faint whisper of belonging to many places. And this has been true for my immersion into Celtic Christianity. Now, unlike Laura Stone, who lived on the Celtic Isle of Iona, or Kurt Borgman, who also went to Iona, anyone else here who has been to Iona? I've not been there. I've not traveled with the express purpose of experiencing Celtic Christianity. I've been to Northern England and through the ancient way of Spain, enough to get a sense of paths walked and rocks that hold centuries of spoken words and prayers. To get a feel in my own bones and flesh for something akin, but not my own experience. I remember hearing and loving the lilt and pattern of this Celtic blessing. Listen to this. Power of the storm be thine, power of moon be thine, power of sun, Power of the sea be thine, power of land be thine, power of heaven. The early Celtic church was characterized by patterns of worship and prayer under the open skies. The high standing crosses were gathering places, wild, exposed sites, earth, sea, and sky, rather than enclosed sanctuaries. These were the temples of God. The central point is the conviction that the holy mystery of God is unbounded and untamable. The image for the Holy Spirit is the wild goose. One Celtic teacher calls the created world the grand volume of God's utterances. Celtic Christianity calls to us with its universal language of creation: wave, moon, wind, fire. It speaks of ancient things, earthy things, feeding spiritual bonfires as they burn in our own souls as we grow closer to God. There is a cadence, a nuance, a subtle, soulful spirit to its liturgy, its churchyard crosses, its music, its poetry. And many people comb their family histories to find a vein of Celtic lineage. We learned that Christianity first appeared among the Celts in the 2nd century, if not earlier. By this point in time, they were living on the edge of the habitable world, or so Britain and Ireland were then regarded. Christian myths and traditions of Columba, Patrick, Bridget bridge the pagan culture as they were claimed for the Christian culture. Was it desecration of an understanding or a deepening of it? Well, that depends on your perspective. Pelagius dared to bring forth an ideal that God is within all things, and that what is deepest within us is the image of God. But Augustine took exception with this, and Pelagius fell as a victim of the triumphal Roman paradigm where Peter is the rock and the church's authority would only be known through that lineage and doctrine. And the wild world view of the Celts was silenced. Again, in the 16th century, the Celtic tradition met with resistance. The reciting of their patterned prayers, long a cultural method of passing down value and belief, was discouraged and even banned. They were regarded as pantheistic and pagan in origin, and maybe they were. And is that scary? Maybe only to the church at that time. How sad, I think, must be the creator God of sun and moon, world and water, animal and human, that we cannot allow ourselves to know the Holy One through what has been created by holy imagination, and are instead bound by what has been stamped approved by church and state. This is not an anti-church memoir, so don't worry. Celtic Christianity is a theological spirituality born of geography and place. The coastlines around Ireland, Scotland, and Britain are rugged and rocky, wild and dangerous. Eyes and hearts watch from the coasts, holding vigil for husbands and neighbors to return from the sea. Maybe yes, maybe no. And when Celtic liturgy speaks of the strength of the wave as a way to know the way of God, it is speaking of something that can hold you aloft or drag you under. Life can end in the single swell of the sea. Celtic Christianity is rooted amidst rugged rocks, pelting sand, salt on the tongue, wind whipping hair and clothing, and the green, craggy pastures too rocky to cultivate, yet vast enough to gaze upon moon and stars and cosmos under the cover of night. It is in these images of rough-hewn living that I find my soul's voice. God is within creation that is earthy and organic, full of life and death, cycles and stillnesses. The Celtic coastline of my mind's eye leads me to the divine, the hiking of heaven, what we sing in that beautiful hymn, the creator of earth and sky. It is not unlike what I've seen on a starry night in a backyard in Indiana, or on the beaches of Puerto Rico, or the ancient pilgrim path in Spain. J. Philip Newell has done much to bring the ancient and a contemporary Celtic Christianity to the foreground once again. His writings interpret the poetic of a people from long ago, turning words like smoring and kindling, those are great words, into words that can enter our own spiritual vocabulary. He hangs his hat on the compilation work of Alexander Carmichael in the Carmina Gadelica, which is this big book filled with all kinds of prayers and blessings. And also the 20th century writings of George MacLeod, the founder of modern day Iona. We learn from all of these writers of the gift of the Celtic Christians, an integration and harmonizing of life and prayer, belief and living. And they call upon the saints, angels, Mother Mary, the Holy Trinity, and Jesus. All of life, every action, every fire, every toothache becomes an opening toward God, the joining of heaven and earth. Honestly, it comes to us now as sort of an amalgam of panentheism, which means that Pelagian notion that God is within everything, and paganism, which came before the official church, just like how we use Christmas trees. It's a smooshing and a blending of ash that blesses and oil that feeds, and maybe some priests that look like priests and maybe some that look like grandmas. Much of the language and metaphor of the Bible is in harmony with the more ancient non-church origins of the Celts. And so something new is born, something that is as ancient as the divine original presence. MacLeod writes, Jesus is vibrant in the material world, not just in the spiritual world. I agree. Hear this mother's blessing. Listen for the rhythm and pattern of how things are written. The joy of God be in thy face, joy to all who see thee. The circle of God around thy neck, angels of God shielding thee, angels of God shielding thee. It is a particular kind of poetic. One of the sights that I would like to see with my own eyes one day and touch with my own fingertips are the Triskells at Newgrange, that ancient mound in Ireland that catches the rising sun at the winter solstice deep at its core in a bowl carved of stone. These beautiful spiraling triads are etched over and over again in stone. The Celtic Christians thought in threes. They wrote in threes, believed in the Trinity. It is the poetics of the Celtic three which has revived and deepened my own re-entrance into the metaphor and belief of the Trinity. There is a lilt, a song, a wave, a meter, which seeks three things to speak of all things. Not only does the liturgical lineage of the Celtic Christian offer us the poetics of three, but the poetics of many. If we ask for God's blessing for one thing, why stop there? Repetition, I'm sorry about that. Repetition, rhythm, turning over every rock of possible blessing, possible protection, possible joy, as if they are kneading like bread their lives to the beat of the heartbeat of God. Philip Newell, that current day mystic and guide into the spirituality of Celtic Christianity, wants us to consider the spirituality of Celtic Christians with an understanding that this is not doctrine to be learned, but something to be felt. He tells us that it is an experience of the divine presence, a hymn that fills the whole universe, a melody that continues whether we're listening or not. Belief is pointed to rather than defined. Hear this morning prayer written in the style of Celtic Christianity. Bless to me, O God, my soul and my body. Bless to me, O God, my belief and my condition. Bless to me, O God, my heart and my speech. And bless to me, O God, the handling of my hand. Strength and busyness of morning, habit and temper of modesty, force and wisdom of thought, and thine own path, O God, of virtues, till I go to sleep this night. Thine own path, O God of virtues, till I go to sleep this night. I have lived most of my own life where there are no jagged coastlines. Indiana has provided me with gorgeous flat farmland. The Pacific Northwest, though, has been my Celtic pilgrimage of sorts. Standing on the wind-battered cliffs, the ocean churning below, the power of the Pacific unrelentless in its demands upon that coastline. And one feels the Celtic coastline in spirit. Literally, it is a space where heaven and earth meet, where the creator, redeemer, sustainer, three, break me open, and I in my humanity join God in unity with creation. There are coastlines all around us, demarcations of peril or livelihood, raw realities marked by poverty, inequality, ice caps melting, guns blazing in school hallways, alongside beauty of peonies and lilac blooms, honeybees, potlucks, shared lunches, comfort offered for solace. Life is as breathtakingly full and real here, all around us. We don't have to go to Ireland. We see it if we choose to open our eyes, our minds, our own lives to realizing it, giving voice to those realizations. Alongside the most beautiful landscapes of Scott Mangus and his crew, where are the wild spaces at Timbercrest, where anything could happen, where the wild goose of God's Spirit could break through like a weed, defiant to boundaries of careful gardening? Maybe your coastlines look like traffic on the way to Fort Wayne for a medical appointment, where everyone is moving like strong and rising tides as you navigate your own boat of being towards safe arrival. Or in the daily kindling of our spirit's fire as we prepare to be made new, or with each meal we attend, each prayer lifted, each daily pattern of picking up a favorite photo, or simply the repeated act of placing a napkin on our laps as a sign of plenty and preparedness. God Jesus, the Holy Spirit, that mysterious 3 in 1, run rampant in this place, as if they are the wind blowing here and there, bidding us to not take ourselves too seriously in this quest of living, which is in fact quite serious. And so, who is to stop us from writing our own liturgies of 3 that recognize the dead, the hungry, the rock and soil, the academic, the aching heart, the farmer, the aging skin, the activist, the artist, rising to a new day, vespers at the end of the day, writings to make us see, liturgy to make us feel, and prayers to make us act. The prayers of the Celtic Christians took the ground of daily living, of health and illness, plenty and want, sprains, gout, milking, birth, and turned them into touchstones for the meeting of heaven and earth. They infused their poetry of lived belief, blessings with belief that when we speak this to each other, something holy happens. Blessings which seek the God of all and the light of Christ and the wildness of the Spirit to come and take part in all aspects of our living, our glorious, broken, incredible living. All of life becomes a touchstone of blessing, as all of life, all of the material world is infused with the heartbeat of God. Receive now this Celtic benediction. We bend the knee in the eye of the God who created us, in the eye of the Son who died for us, in the eye of the Spirit who moves us in love and in desire. For the many gifts you have bestowed on us each day and night, each sea and land, each weather fair, each calm, each wild. Thanks be to you, O God. And thanks be to each of you for being here this afternoon. I will also say that I have some Celtic books up here if you want to come and look at things.